Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Tuesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. It is opening night of the 2025-2026 NBA season. What factors will raise the Lakers' ceiling or lower their floor? We'll tell you next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free and never behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 36,000 subscribers to the channel, Andy. So many ways to get Locked On Lakers, whether it is through YouTube or the audio product, of course, delivered to you every day if you're a subscriber through Apple or through Spotify. That's where most of the subscribers come from. You get podcasts all over the place these days, Andy. That's just the way the technology works. It starts tonight. Our long wait is over. Lakers versus Warriors on Peacock, which is something we've never said before. And I, for one, Andy, very excited.
I think this is going to be a really exciting Lakers season. I think it's going to be a very entertaining Lakers season. And I think when you consider both the stakes of this season and that, and this is something, by the way, you and I have never really discussed. Maybe we will over the course of, the week, if not the season. A season coming up where 3/4 of the team are in walk years. There's a lot of intrigue.
That actually is not anything new, but
that's unusual to have this many players.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying with the Lakers, it has been a trend of late where a lot of guys are on
Okay, let me rephrase. Deals. This many players who actually matter being on walk years. Everybody but Luka and Vando are in walk years.
No, the structure of this team going forward and what it looks like, if there's a successful
potential walk years,
is something that we will be talking about a lot over the course of the year, depending on how things go, because suddenly bunches of guys who are on expiring contracts maybe go to try to acquire some assets before they're not useful. Or maybe you use those to acquire things that you might be able to do to make a larger run. But the roster is in such an unusual place. And I think particularly now, given the Western Conference and the injury to LeBron James, because I think it was a couple weeks ago before when we thought LeBron might still make the beginning of the season. It had seemed like the Lakers had settled in to that tier. The consensus was, Andy, that they had sort of settled into that tier behind Oklahoma City, behind Denver. And then after the Van Vliet injury in Houston, that big chunk in the middle with, maybe even slightly at the top of that.
The Rockets, the Wolves, the Clippers, the
Warriors,
all kind of bunched together.
I think with the LeBron injury, it gets us to a place where now there really is a little bit of greater doubt around where this season is going to go. The Lakers can, if they choose to, be that team that they can say nobody really believes in us anymore. They could start to play that card or approach the season from that perspective of we're not being paid as close attention to, which, whether it's true or not that the Lakers, they're always paid attention to, I think can actually kind of be an advantage, for a team to just go play. There's still a lot of moving parts for this team and a lot of things that need to get figured out and ironed out, and they need to just go play.
I agree that they need to go play. I don't agree with the assessment that they can just sort of play under the radar. That does not exist for a Lakers team with LeBron, with Luka, with all of the questions surrounding them.
They're never going to be, I don't mean under the radar. I just mean that where I think
I don't think there's a lot of freedom to this.
To me, I feel like they've been knocked down a tier, and that other teams are expected now to do more than they are.
That's probably true. I just don't see it as an advantage. But either way, it doesn't matter. They got to play the season regardless.
And the Warriors are an interesting team to open against just because they are, I think, in a lot of ways a mirror image of the Lakers in terms of the potential to be a team that teams wouldn't want to play in the playoffs, even if you don't think they can win 4 rounds in a title. In any given round, if everyone is healthy, given what the Warriors did with that Steph Butler lineup last year, the success they had, at least on paper, they look like a very successful team. They also have a ton of question marks, even more age-related question marks than the Lakers do, because the Lakers' age-related question marks are really LeBron.
Yeah, it was interesting. I for my ESPN LA weekly Lakers show, Lakers Talk, I did a preview of the game tonight against the Warriors with Sam Esfandiari, the co-host of the Light Years podcast. And he talked about how with Jimmy and Steph out there, like if nothing else, they believe internally that that level of play was real. You know, he said he, like all of us, needs to actually see it over the course of an entire season. And also without the added desperation of, we just acquired Jimmy Butler. Awesome. We're also like a 10 seed and we really need to pick it up. Like,
yeah.
And, you know, the Lakers are no stranger to that either. Like the idea of the urgency that can come from, no, seriously, we need to pick our asses up and get our asses in gear if we're actually going to get into the play-in, much the playoffs. But one thing he did note, and it'll be interesting just watching this game, and something I hope the Lakers put to the test, both Jonathan Kuminga and Butler have been dealing with ankle issues, but Sam said the Kuminga one, you know, it's legit, but it's more of like a tweak, whereas Jimmy Butler's is like a legit sprain. He thinks they're both going to play tonight, but the Lakers should be looking to test that ankle of Jimmy's, especially because he hasn't played much in the preseason to begin with. So there may be a little bit of lack of cohesion between him and the other guys anyway. But if you put Jimmy to more of a physical test and you start seeing that strain, as Sam mentioned, they are a very different, more ordinary team with a lesser version, or, you know, if one of them wasn't playing, but in this case, a lesser version of Steph or Jimmy. They just become much, much different. And by different, I mean worse.
And it's, you know, this is something that actually came up a fair amount in the commentary for Monday's show about this, the choice of the starting lineup. I do think it is not a coincidence that the Gabe Vincent thing is guaranteed only through Tuesday, through the game with the Warriors, just because of how Golden State operates, where there is so much motion and so many screens. And so, and Vando as a chaser that's not his, you know, through screens, screen navigation.
No, he's done a good job though guarding Steph. He actually has
so
done that well.
As an individual, but that sort of screen navigation has never been his strong suit as a defender. And so I want, you know, I think there could be a little bit of matchup going, you know,
sure,
calculus going on here.
Similar to what the Lakers did with Schroeder in that series a couple of years ago against the Warriors.
It's always interesting though to open up against a team that is a little bit unconventional, and the Warriors are still a group like that, you know, that you know, don't play with traditional bigs. You know, they don't have a lot of that kind of size, but like they just do things. And Steph is not even a little like, he's a lot like Luka in the sense that he bends defenses in ways that other players just can't. Steph's ability to shoot from anywhere in, you know, like gone, it just changes how teams operate. So I love opening up against a team like this. It's fun.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how JJ chooses to try to match up with the Warriors, like with Al Horford as a stretch big and Draymond as somebody that you can put all over the court because they run so much through him all over the place. And even though he's not a shooter, he's such a good facilitator. It's kind of like Andrew Bogut years ago. You know, you could use him out of the high post as a non-shooter because he's such a good passer. You can, you know, Jokic and Marc Gasol are also shooters, but it's the same principle. Right. There's no natural matchup defensively for DeAndre Ayton in this game. So I'm curious to see exactly what they do with him. Who guards Jimmy Butler? What do you do with Draymond? Like, these are all interesting questions that I'm very, very curious to see what JJ does and how much of a glimpse this could provide into his thinking for the whole season. Because again, there are not natural, obvious answers, I think, are obvious defensive matchups with the Warriors and what we think at least is going to be the starting lineup for the Lakers.
You mentioned DeAndre Ayton. There was an interesting story this week in The Athletic talking about players, to use that sort of X factor categorization, guys who can raise your ceiling. What are the factors, DeAndre Ayton and beyond, that will raise the Lakers' ceiling or potentially lower their floor in ways that people aren't necessarily thinking about? We'll get to that next. First, I do want to tell you that Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Built. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where Built comes in. Built is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards that you can actually use. And when you pay your rent through Built, you earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels, airlines, future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But Built isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. So basically, you can do this thing that you're doing anyway that you don't necessarily love to do, and now you feel like it's sending you somewhere positive. So turn your rent into rewards. Start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. Make sure to use that link so that they know that we sent you.
Locked On Lakers is also brought to you by Skims. I'm somebody who's really picky about underwear. I only like boxer briefs. They got to have a certain feel, a certain tightness, a looseness. It's like Goldilocks. Got to be just right. So when I heard that we could try some Skims underwear at Locked On, my first thought was I had no idea that they even made men's underwear over at Skims, which they do. A lot of styles. And then my second thought is, am I going to like them? And the answer is, hell yeah, I'm going to like them. I tried both the 3-inch and the 5-inch boxer briefs just to see what the difference was. And there's none, which is awesome because they both feel great. They're really comfortable. They're soft. They don't bunch up. And whether you're working out or running errands or just laying around the house, in your drawers, which you're allowed to do in your own damn house, they are incredibly comfortable. The lightweight material feels amazing. It's like you're almost wearing nothing at all. Commando! Shop Skims Men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA at Skims stores. But let them know we sent you. This is extremely important. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show, Locked On Lakers, in the drop-down menu that follows.
So when you try to figure out, we talked a little bit in the first segment, like, where are the Lakers in the conference? Not title contenders in the sense that, like, you picture them as like, oh yeah, like if it's not Oklahoma City, it's going to be the Lakers. Like, that's not what this team is. But there's certainly a scenario in which the Lakers are there at the end of the year. How do they get there? What are the things that can raise up the floor for the Lakers? DeAndre Ayton in this story from The Athletic, Fred Katz, that wrote, absolutely one of those guys. I 100% agree.
Yeah, he picked the 5 most pivotal role players in the NBA this season. He chose Kevin Porter Jr. with the Bucks, DeAndre Hunter with the Cavs, Terrence Shannon Jr. with the Timberwolves, who I really like, Reed Shepherd with the Rockets, who I'm very intrigued by, and then DeAndre Ayton. And here's some of what Fred wrote, quote, "There's no louder hit-or-miss role player than Ayton, a former #1 pick who signed with the most glamorous franchise of them all. He's been an up-and-coming star, then the starting center for a team that made it to the finals, and a lackadaisical big who refuses physicality as he wastes away on losing squad, all this before his 28th birthday." And then he goes on to talk about how Luka Dončić has made a lot of big men worse than DeAndre Ayton look incredible, and how Ayton can be a great outlet for both Luka and LeBron when they attack the hoop. He said, quote, "He can operate out of the short roll, receiving the basketball around the free throw line, or passing, or even pulling up from there when he's open. Despite its gloomy reputation, an Ayton mid-range jumper is not death. He's one of the league's most accurate shooters from that area. He can keep those types of plays in his game, but it can't be all he does." And then particularly talked about how Ayton is not a player who operates with a ton of physicality. He has averaged for his career 2.3 free throw attempts per game in 31 minutes. That is not a lot. And in the preseason, he is basically on that same pace. And it's interesting to think about this, I think, with Ayton, just from the perspective of physicality, grading and evaluating what we've seen in the preseason, because physicality in a lot of ways can be related back to motor and desire and willingness, different elements that DeAndre Ayton has been, to put it mildly, questioned about over the course of his career. And while we are not seeing any type of uptick in terms of physicality that would lead to getting to the line, I do think that there are signs of good physicality from Ayton in this preseason that I think Laker fans could get optimistic about. One thing in particular is Istok Franco, a Slovenian basketball writer.
I was hoping you would mention this.
He's covered Luka since his days with Real Madrid. Excellent Twitter follow. He's actually been on our show before. But these two tweets, Luka and Reeves' pick and roll chemistry with Ayton is not there yet, especially on lobs, but small sample size data skewed by good Luka and Austin shot making is not as bad as some think. 1.140 points per chance on 66 picks this preseason. Last year, only Murray-Jokic combo better. Again, very skewed data. Sharing this because I rewatched all 66 picks Ayton set for Luka and Austin, and I think his screening was actually good, and they created a lot of three-point looks out of them. And to me, this is just one of the examples of where, and we can get into others as well, you can look at some of DeAndre Ayton's physicality and say, is he getting to the line and being as aggressive around the rim offensively, maybe and physically as fans or even maybe Luka's teammates, JJ Redick, would want? No, but there are other ways where I do think his physicality has manifested itself positively in the preseason.
I look at it this way too. It's like, I don't expect DeAndre Ayton to be a wildly different player than he was over the course of his career. I just, there's certain guys. It's a little bit like, is this going to be the year that Vando starts making three-pointers? It is probably not going to be the year that Vando starts making three-pointers because Vando is just not a good three-point shooter. Like there are exceptions, guards. There's guys who over the course of his career, Jason Kidd went from god-awful outside shooter to very good by the end of his career. LeBron, that was the weakness of his game at the beginning of his career, and I was pretty good three-point shooter. And so, there are exceptions to this. But, DeAndre Ayton is not going to triple his free throw rate this year. It would be great if he did. He's not going to. But, again, you have to compare this to what they were doing. Like, the stuff that he is good at and that he already has shown. And I watched some of these tape breakdowns of, the different screens and the different sets. It's different than post-trade last year. Jackson's not as good at that. And the fact that Jackson can't pop, that if he's going to set a screen and he's going to score, it is going to be at the rim. The fact that he can't, that Ayton can do other things changes the dynamic defensively. So he doesn't have to be, Andy, the idealized version of Ayton that includes skills that he's never shown. He just needs to be good at the stuff that he's always been good at. Would be very, very much good enough, I think, for the Lakers. Setting screens, rebounding, at his best in terms of what he can do defensively, it will make a huge difference.
Well, here's what I would say. I agree with you that in terms of the stat sheet, what DeAndre Ayton has done well, if he keeps that up, in particular, double-digit scoring, double-digit rebounding, and his rebounding in terms of things that are related in some ways to physicality.
Sure.
His rebounding in the preseason has been, it's been great even by DeAndre Ayton standards. He's averaging 9 rebounds a game in the preseason in 24 minutes. Per 36 minutes, that's 13 and a half rebounds. Whittle that down to low 30s for minutes. You're talking about, 11-ish rebounds a game. That will be more than good enough from DeAndre Ayton, and it's very in line with what he's always done. His blocks in the preseason, block shots, almost 2 per game in just 24 minutes. That's well above his career averages, like way, way above. DeAndre Ayton averages about a block per game in 31 minutes. Like, I'm not even saying this is the year that DeAndre Ayton channels his inner Dikembe Mutombo. I'm just saying you're seeing signs of him doing certain things of physicality beyond just the free throw rate. To your point, though, about the needing to just do the things he does well, I agree with that on the stat sheet. I think the areas that will signal DeAndre Ayton having a really good season are going to be the things that you will not know just by looking at the stat line, but watching the actual games, like his attentiveness defensively.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
How much he is talking out there on the court, how much we hear about his teammates saying how much he is talking. Like, is he a problem in the lane in ways that don't necessarily come up in block shots, but make it clear teams, unless you go into some of the deeper stat dives or whatever, teams are struggling more to score around the rim. Like, when is he a decent connective player if he gets that ball in the mid post and isn't necessarily looking to shoot? Does he find the right guy to pass out? Yeah. Like, things like that are the areas where I think the better version of DeAndre Ayton is going to shine through, or not.
There's a consistency there. I would 100% agree with you. This, like, one knock on Ayton over the course of his career, not serious enough, not enough attention to detail. There is a certain, I mean, he was on a team that went to the Western Conference Final. It's not like you can't stick him in a lineup and it just, the whole thing falls apart. Like, but historically, at least, certainly by reputation, that sort of consistent level of attention to detail and focus and willingness and just this understanding, you can't turn it off. It took Rui a good year and a half to kind of get that. He's gotten better at it. Even when you're well-meaning, it's a muscle memory type thing. And so, yeah, I think that kind of thing, he's going to have to, and I hate the expression because it's so like sports radio, like he's got to lock in, Andy, and, be there, but he kind of needs to lock in and understand the consistency that is required and that's one of the things that's so difficult about being a high-end NBA player on a high-end NBA team. What else could raise their ceiling or lower their floor in ways that people might not be thinking about? We'll tell you next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, admit it, you are. It's time to start saying yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. Say yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep the same number and contacts, which is huge. I've had the same number for 25 years. I could never relearn a new one. You're ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Upfront payment of $45 is required. It's equivalent of $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months. Only speeds may be slow above 35 gigabyte on the unlimited plan. Taxes and fees are extra. See Mint Mobile for details.
I have a couple things in mind for, ceiling raisers and floor lowers and all that kind of stuff. Do you have any you want to start?
Hit me with yours.
The difference between Luka of last year and Luka of 2 years ago. And it doesn't necessarily seem like a ton because like Luka last year was still like really good. You're talking about, 20 something, 26, 27 points a game, 8 or 9 rebounds a game, 7 or 8 assists a game. But that difference between like that extra 10%, that extra 15% or whatever is what takes Luka from being a top 10 player in basketball to a top 2, to a top 3. And that is a huge difference. Like when your best player is Jokic or Shea versus, and I mean no disrespect, Donovan Mitchell, just to name a name. Who is
Jalen Brunson.
These are elite NBA players, but they're not that guy. And so, if you have one of those guys. LeBron has historically been like that. That covers a lot of faults. And so, it's not just like cosmetic that you talk about like Luka and this transformation of form and playing so well at Eurobasket, playing so well in the preseason. It's because that difference between what he was 2 years ago, 30 something points a game, 10 rebounds, 10 assists a night, steal and a half. People don't talk about that part. That raises the Lakers floor and ceiling by a lot.
Nobody on this team can raise the Lakers floor and ceiling more than Luka. Like, there are other guys who I think can do one or the other. I think there are a few guys who can do a bit of both, but nobody can do more of both than Luka. Like, if he's healthy, his baseline foundation just by showing up raises you above the levels that several other teams can't match at their best. And then when things are really rolling with Luka at the controls, that ceiling raises up because, again, he plays at a level that like 2% of the league at their best can even think about matching.
Do you get the impression that people are factoring in 2 years ago Luka or something closer to that when they make their predictions for the Lakers? Like, that's baked into the cake. Like, the expectation is you're going to get a guy who averages in the high 20s, close to a triple double every night.
Yeah, the reason I think so is as much as the general prognostications for the Lakers among NBA pundits and previews and whatnot have the Lakers anywhere from 5 to 7, maybe occasionally they pop up as a 4, but mostly they're in that 5 to 7 range. Luka is perennially listed as one of the leading MVP candidates, like not the front runner, but one of the leading. So that to me feels like an acknowledgement of we are going to have that type of season from Luka. And also, I've just heard enough people mention and acknowledge that Luka arrived physically in a state that did not match peak Luka. He was coming off an injury and never really had the time to recover, and he kind of had to hit the ground running with the Lakers as relatively quickly as he could. But there's also the mental piece of this too, and I don't mean just, we've talked about this a lot, getting past the betrayal from Dallas and that sucker punch trade and the bad mouthing and all that stuff. There's the element of enjoying himself again. Like, JJ Redick recently talked about how Luka is a player for whom having fun is a must. Like, it's like a vital part of how he approaches the game. And as much as Luka is sickly competitive and is yelling all the time at refs and, has, like a psychopathic body language and aura at times on the court, he is also somebody that really loves this and like has fun when he's out there. And the fun, I mean, I'm maybe projecting a little bit based off what other people have said and whatever, and what Luka's said, and we'll know for sure this season. But especially looking back on it, the fun piece of it did not seem to be there as consistently for Luka for very understandable reasons. Mm-hmm. I think this year it's going to be there because he already looks like he's having a blast.
I want to get to one more quick before we go, and it's I don't like just saying like injuries just because it's so obvious, but I want to mention that just this one thing, and because I think it's related to this conversation about the starting lineup and how guys are managed and used. And one of the things that I think will especially lower the Lakers' floor is a significant injury to either Jared Vanderbilt or Marcus Smart.
Yeah. And
I say this not because they're the team's best players, because they're not. I say this because they're their least they don't have another guy. Like, you can't
specifically do what they do.
Right. You can't duplicate what Marcus Smart is in theory there to do with anybody else on the roster. You can't do what Jared Vanderbilt is expected to do with anybody else on the roster, with the possible exception of Adu Thiero, only because he is, comes from school with a reputation of being a real defensive oriented player. And if you happen to catch the videos from practice on Monday where the guy is like leaping out of the gym during rehab, it's like
I will be the first to admit I have really not seen Adou Thiero other than a couple clips online. I'd never heard of him when the Lakers drafted him. I will not pretend to be, even an Adou Thiero casual, but I am really, really intrigued to see what he looks like, because the people I know who do pay a lot of attention to this stuff, they say he is a sick athlete and like a relentlessly energetic, particularly just defender, but player.
But all of that,
want to see this.
Yeah, me too. But all of this notwithstanding, like, to expect him to then go and play a really significant role in the rotation, it's kind of a rawish prospect. That is not fair, and it's not going to work. No. So
either things went really wrong, or the Lakers scouting department nails. Like they nailed this one.
Right. So but like, if Jake LaRavia gets hurt, there are guys who can approximate Jake LaRavia's skill set. If even Reeves, guys, obviously they're bigger players. It becomes problematic, but an injury to Jared Vanderbilt that really either robs him of the athleticism that makes him a useful player, an injury to Marcus Smart, like, that will hurt more than a mid-rotation injury for most teams.
Speaks to why, we talked recently about Gabe Vincent in the starting lineup. One of the reasons I don't like it is I think groups Smart and Vando naturally together more on the floor than I would want. I would want to see their particular specialties lined up to be spread out more than theoretically them both coming off the bench.
Right. But what I'm getting at kind of does potentially speak, at least with Smart initially, to why they might do it that way, is because you are trying to be very conscious of workload, at least early in the season. So we'll see how it goes. Tonight, Andy, is our first post-game show of the year. We did them after preseason games because we need the practice too. Stars, they're just like us.
We took the preseason seriously, unlike the Lakers.
We we played every game. But I'm excited. It's going to be a really fun season. We're excited to have all of you with us, all of the Slovenian crew here for a full season. We are excited to get this going. So Locked On Lakers on YouTube.
And hola to the Luka Dončić Real Madrid real ones.
Yes. Real ones. Exactly. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is going to go hang out with over 36,000 subscribers. We'll see everyone after the game.